Hello, YouTube! So, I've already covered Total Drama Island, and I figure it's time I revisit Total Drama Action 2, because I have plenty of thoughts on this season. Again, I will go character by character, and of course, I'll start with Chris. In Total Drama Island, Chris was the crazy host. This season, we got to see Chris become a bit more cruel. He was less compassionate with the contestants than he was last season. Some could say he's started to become flanderized as a character. I would say this is the natural evolution of a reality TV host as they realize, oh, my show's a big deal. It worked for me. Chris was fun and entertaining as a host. There is also Chef, who I think had a very interesting season this time around. They put a spotlight on Chef feeling underappreciated this season, and he showed out in ways like making an alliance with DJ. That alliance with DJ was a pretty entertaining plot point that lasted for a good chunk of episodes. That allowed Chef to have more involvement in the storylines, whereas last season he was very much a side character. He felt more on equal ground with Chris this season. We also got to see Chef's dynamic with Chris in more of a focal point. There was a bit more infighting between them, especially at the end of the season, where Chef felt that Chris just didn't appreciate what he brought, so they switched roles in the finale. That was the best part of the finale, because the finale of this season, spoiler, yikes. But it was nice to see them bicker a bit, but of course they came back together. Like, they'll always work as a dynamic duo. Now going into the contestants, I'll just go in the boot order. The first boots were Jeff and Bridget. Very lame first boots. They spent the whole first 2 episodes just making out. It was annoying. I was glad to see them go. But then they get a whole new life when we're introduced to the Aftermath, which is a new thing this season. Jeff and Bridget get to host the Aftermath, and the Aftermath takes the newest round of eliminated contestants from the show. They're interviewed, recapping their experience. We get more insight into what's been happening off the show in their lives. Sometimes we get to revisit the old contestants from Total Drama Island that did not make the cut this season. And it was interesting to watch Jeff and Bridget handle this new spotlight that they had as the host. For Jeff, the fame was going to his head, but Bridget would always try to reel him back in and bring him back to the reality of it. Ultimately, he did find a balance by the end of the season, which is cool. Now, for Bridget, on the other hand, I think this was a bad development for her character. I said previously in Total Drama Island that I thought that was the best that Bridget could ever be. I still think they could have done a better job with her here in sticking more true to her island showing. Bridget lost her cool girl status and she pretty much just became a nag, always telling Jeff, no, that's wrong, don't do this, Jeff. Bridget was very much right in every instance, but it just wasn't that exciting, really. It's like, oh, this is what we're doing with Bridget now. So even though she was speaking the truth, it just wasn't that interesting of a character. But I think it's fine, like, what else can you really do with Bridget? If somebody's got to be shackled with the good cop to somebody's bad cop, like, fine. That's a fine role for Bridget. There was more there, but I wasn't desperate for more from Bridget. I would have been interested to see her last in the competition a bit longer without Jeff, but it's not the biggest loss. Like, please, there are other characters that I'd much rather see more from than Bridget. The next boot was Izzy, but she made sure to get booted as E-Scope, her new personality of sorts. Izzy came onto the season telling everybody to call her Kaleidoscope, E-Scope for short. When she flames out at the big acting challenge after all her dramatics, she tells everybody E-Scope is the one who got eliminated. And then she comes back as Izzy in the present episode And she has another good little run, and she makes it pretty close to the halfway point of the season. Izzy, she's the same as she was in Island. I would say it was a more elevated version of her since we got the East Scope aspect. We've also got to see Explosivo. Boom boom!
Explosivo is loco for boom boom!
But Izzy had some spectacular moments this season. She had her alien fight with Chef. She had falling in love with the monster chef in the first episode. The acting challenge itself, that was pretty funny. And then again in her boot episode when she was Explosivo and doing all the big explosions, like, oh, I mean, yeah, you had to get booted because you're nuts, but she had a pretty entertaining run of it, and she was still one of my favorite characters. It was also fun to see her on the Aftermath. She played really well on there, and it's interesting to see Izzy outside of a competitive lens. She still has the relationship with Owen, which is annoying. But Izzy is capable of existing outside of that relationship and having her own stuff going on. It's very much a side piece to the full experience that Izzy is. I wish it wasn't there, but it's not the end of the world that it is. Next boot was Trent, who was very much the hot topic of the season until he left, because he experienced a total character assassination. No, I didn't care that his character was assassinated because, if you can recall from my last video, I did not like Trent in the first place. So I was like, okay, if we're gonna destroy somebody's character, sure, have it be Trent. Him and Gwen came on the season together, and Trent just went total psycho over his obsession with Gwen. Trent let his love of Gwen completely consume him. He was throwing challenges, he was scaring Gwen off, he was just being a total nuisance to everybody. He was very inseparable in the episodes he was in. I'm so glad that he left as early as he did and that we haven't seen him on the show since this season. Enough of Trent. He did get on the Aftermath and he started to act like he was all normal and fine again. It's like, no, we know the real Trent. The Trent is the psycho loser boy who has an obsession with Gwen and lost her because of said obsession. Trent, you will always be desperate, and he will go down as one of the worst characters in total drama history. Exiting right after Trent was Gwen herself. After having such a big season in Total Drama Island, I was relieved to see Gwen get an early exit here. Even in the episodes Gwen was in, she was getting far too much screen time. Like, she had to go for the others to get some shine. It was after Gwen got booted that we got to see more of the characters get more shine. Like, you can directly see that impact. That's around when the rise of Lindsay started, and then Lashana had some more. Getting rid of Gwen early was a blessing for everybody else involved, because she just sucks the life out of the show. Trading Gwen for Izzy, what an upgrade that was. I do appreciate Gwen for hitting Harold in the head with a shovel on her way out, and leaving in handcuffs is a fitting way for Gwen to go. Good riddance. Next to leave was DJ. DJ finally got to have a storyline of his own this season with the alliance he had with Chef. I found this storyline to be a pretty enjoyable storyline. I was always happy to see it come on screen because that meant, okay, no more Gwen and Trent drama. Ugh. It was interesting to see how Chef saw himself in DJ and how DJ dealt with that, because you don't want to become Chef, quite frankly. But DJ was fully cheating, and watching the nice guy have to deal with the moral implications of cheating to get money, it was interesting, and he ultimately quits the game. I do not like quitting, but I can respect it for what it is. Not how I would like to see things go, but sure, if he's gotta quit, he's gotta quit. I was fine to see him leave in the placement, and he did, and I am happy that he had some more to do this season. It's whatever. I also have to give a shout out to DJ's mama, one of the all-time Total Drama characters who got to debut this season. Oh, what a fun time she was. Every appearance she had, I loved it. The next boot was Izzy again, but I already discussed her. So after Izzy is Owen. I think Owen's appearance here is one of the main flaws of the season. We start and he's up to his same hijinks as last time until he gets his jaw broken. I quite enjoyed seeing Owen suffer, and then he was forced into silence for a few episodes with his jaw wired shut. Seemed cool to me. The episode he finally gets his jaw open, he gets booted. Like, bye, good riddance. He gets booted in the episode Courtney Returns. Despite Courtney having immunity, everybody still votes Courtney, but Courtney cast her one vote for Owen, sending Owen home. Swapping Owen out for Courtney is what took this season from mediocre to excellent in my eyes, and this is when we got the best stretch of episodes in Total Drama history, is once Owen left. But then at the end of the season, the best stretch of episodes in Total Drama history ends when Owen returns. Why did we need an Owen return? The season completely falls apart on Owen's return, and I would give him a lot of the blame for that. We traded Owen for Lindsay. What a massive downgrade. We trade the best character of the season for the worst character of the season. Why? Why? Owen returned from a lawsuit that claimed an unfair exit or whatever. No, your exit was not unfair. Nobody told you to vote out the person who was immune. No, you're just stupid. And he held such a grudge for Courtney. It's like, you made your bed, lie in it. It was so annoying. His hatred for Courtney is just like, why? People have done much worse to you on this show. All she did was vote you out. I guess he's never been voted out before, sure. And he's such a chill guy too. Like, he wasn't even mad on the aftermath when it's revealed that his family went into a bunch of debt because they spent a bunch of money on a cheese seller. You're not mad about that, but you randomly hold this grudge for Courtney, one person who voted you out in a game that's about being voted out, when you could have just voted somebody else out. You voted her. So, fair game. Just like a sword loser. He's pathetic. He was brought back to sabotage, but he did a terrible job at sabotaging it. He pretty much ruined all that the end game was building towards. It's so frustrating. How could such a good thing be ruined so quickly? Owen, that's how. Next boot was a newly bald Heather. There were some bald jokes this season that belong in the Meme Hall of Fame. They were so funny.
I watched the show. I know what I saw between Duncan and Gwen. Nothing gets past me.
I got some! Courtney's hair. Soon it will be mine. All mine. What? I'm not crazy. I'm just bald.
Heather, she has some good comedic moments. I love a good bald joke. She lost her wig in the first 2 episodes.
My wig! No!
And she spent the rest of the season without a wig until the last 2 episodes where she gets a prehistoric wig and she hates it at first, when she loves it. It's a whole ordeal. It was so funny to me. But this was Heather's most understated season. She just came off her stretch of being the ultimate villain last season. This was the version of Heather that's been humbled from her past run. She lost out of the million so close. She lost her hair. She was humiliated in front of the world. She had nothing to lose coming into this season. We got to see Heather more humanized, which was building her arc for what would be next season. How impressive is it that coming in as enemy number 1, she still managed to make it so close and was the last boot before merge? What a run. That just shows how good Heather really is, because she had no business surviving as long as she did. For me, the highlight of Heather's time this season was her befriending Lashana. After Lashana had a bit of a villainous incident this season, Heather was the only one who gave her any sympathy or support. Those two just have such a chemistry as enemies, as friends. It was really fun to see them drop the beef and become friends. I'm cool with them existing in a frenemies territory. I just really enjoyed their dynamic this season. Speaking of, the next boo was Lashana. I failed to discuss this in my last video. I had to cut it out from some technical difficulties, but Lashana, she exists as the loud black girl stereotype in Total Drama. That stereotype still existed this season, and it was disappointing. Just because the show is built around stereotypes doesn't mean it's okay to perpetuate the same racist stereotypes that are found in reality TV. Beyond that, I'll say Lashana had a more complex season than she did last time around. Lashana was seen in a more villainous light. When she saved everybody and won the reward, she got caught talking trash about everybody with La Shaniqua. It was interesting to see Lashana grapple with that because everybody was turned against her, but she managed to make up for it and prove that, like, no, it was just a one-off. I'm still the Lashana that you all know and love. But ultimately, that villainous act was used against her when she got voted out. Harold, of all people, voted out Lashana. I wish she learned her lesson when Harold voted her off, but no, she just brushed it off and forgave Harold immediately. It was annoying, to say the least. I'm at least glad that Lashana got a normal elimination this season. She wasn't the victim to any twist or anything. She got taken out because Courtney got in Harold's head. But that's what you get for messing around with Harold. I tried to tell her. The next boot was Justin. His storyline was pretty much what happens when the pretty boy loses his charm. All of season 1, Justin never spoke. We just had him making it through the game based off his face, his chest, his abs, his everything. But this season, as he'd get injured in the competitions and everything, he would lose his ability to charm his way through. He wasn't always able to get his way this season, and it was very entertaining, very comedic watching him deal with that. Now, billing him as the season's villain, which they were trying to do for a minute there, it's laughable because he's so pathetic. But his arc was entertaining and it was an enjoyable part of the season. Seeing Courtney defeat Justin, pushing him off the tower, taking over as the villain role of the season, it was a very satisfying way to conclude Justin's arc. The next boot was Lindsay. Undeniably, Lindsay was hands down the star of the season. After finally freeing herself from Heather at the end of last season, she finally got to come into her own this time around. She was on the disaster tribe of the Killer Grips, and she found herself taking a leadership role. Lindsay still kept her ditzy charm. She got to have moments that showed that she was a capable competitor, like in the mystery episode when she solved the mystery, or when she defused the bomb. She got to really hold her own as a competitor, and that ultimately made her the hero of the season. I think Lindsay as the hero of the season, it makes her a great representative because the season's so wacky and unserious, and Lindsay, she's the perfect representation of that. Unexpected, comedic, random a bit, Lindsay. Like, it works. Being the hero, she had a fun dynamic with the season's villain, Courtney. Lindsay tried to treat Courtney like everybody else, tried to have fun with her, but Courtney just couldn't stand her and found her to be annoying and insufferable and wouldn't really take her serious as a competitor. I could watch their back and forth for an eternity. They have such a fun dynamic together. Unfortunately, Lindsay was cut short of her win and didn't get to conclude all of her arcs that were established throughout the season. She resorted back to the lowest form of idiot and voted herself off the show. It was one of the most unsatisfying moments in Total Drama history. Lindsay was at the center of everything this season, So after losing her, the season struggled to find a sound structure to follow. She's tied everything together. Courtney was her villain. It should have been, in the end, her getting to cut out Courtney herself and getting to prove that, no, don't underestimate me as a competitor. But she didn't get that chance. No, she proved Courtney right, which I'm fine with because I love Courtney. But for Lindsay's character, it was not good. She's the winner of the season in my eyes. Screw Beth. Screw Duncan. The next boot after Lindsay was Harold. I will always hate Harold. He's the same loser this season that he was last season. He's a good-for-nothing lowlife, and he always will be. If I have to say anything nice about him, his dynamic with Duncan was interesting as Lashana tried to force the two together to get along, to align, because she needed them as her only allies. But then Harold voted out Lashana against his own best interest. I love that move. I love it. For Courtney, as the strategic mastermind that she is. But Harold, he's a freaking idiot, and Lashana deserves better. There was one bright light in the end game, and it was finally getting to see Courtney get her revenge on Harold as she outlasted him this season. Take that. That's what you get for rigging her out last season. I will never forget it. And I was so glad that Courtney got to have a higher placement. But all that to say, the next boot, just short of the finale, was Courtney. She wasn't on the season to start. We saw her on the aftermath. She was angry. She wanted to play. But she got with her lawyers and she sued her way back onto the show. Her return fully saved the season, and she's just what the season needed. She's also placed on the hot mess team, the Killer Grips, the opposite team of Duncan. And she immediately tries to take control of the team, despite Lindsay, who was on her leadership kick. It was a fun dynamic to see such a power player stuck with terrible competitors. Courtney's given advantages as part of her lawsuit, which caused the other contestants to really side-eye her. And the main one that she had was her PDA. Iconic, the PDA, it's legendary. Being placed on the opposing team of Duncan, we got to have some really fun Courtney moments of her defeating Duncan. We had, in the prehistoric episode, she kicked Duncan into the tar. What a moment. And then the next episode after that, in the sports episode, she wrestles Duncan in a ball pit. She really gave it to Duncan. I loved it. After that, we reach the merge, and we get my favorite Courtney moment of all time. It is her coming out as a villain. We see her jumping through the lasers, super cool, and she gets surprised. Chris tells everybody the building's about to explode, and Courtney's got the only tools to get out of the building. So what does she do? She says, everybody offer me a 50-50 split of the prize money if you win, and I will get you out of here. And she just gets a vicious smirk on her face.
I share the prize money with you 50-50 if you win. What?
This was the official kickoff of her villainous arc, and it was glorious. In that moment, she was there to win the money, and that was her only goal. It was awesome. It was so refreshing to see that after she had missed out on the series up until this point, really. She was going full force, and she proved to be a competitor. She proved to be the competitor I always knew that she'd be. I'll never forget where I was the first time I was watching Total Drama Action Live, and Courtney made her return. I just knew it was about to be the moment, and she did not disappoint me at all. Courtney goes on to win most of the immunities throughout the merge, proving to be probably the most dominant physical competitor in the Total Drama history. We also got some like smaller, great chunks of characterization of Courtney throughout this season. We learn about her time in the band, the Type A Psychotic Crazies, where they had to split up before their first show because they couldn't have 5 leads. And then we also had the moment where everybody's getting their special items, and Courtney gets a picture of herself with a trophy.
What is that?
I need a minute. When I was head of the school debating team, my partner walked out on me during the biggest debate of the year because she felt I wasn't being a team player. I went on to win it without her. Take that, Brittany Reed. This photo is a reminder. If you want something done right, you do it yourself.
This moment showed key motivation for Courtney as a character, and she has these little scenes that give you a bigger peek into the picture that really just stick out to me and click with me. I could probably do a whole video discussing Courtney's characterization, but I'll try to keep it brief here. But until the bitter end, Courtney put up a fight. Even in her final episode, we see her taking down a swarm of sharks. Like, who else but Courtney? Yeah, but then she got eliminated just short of the finale. It was unfortunate. Despite showing such strength, we also get to see her one weakness, which is her relationship with Duncan. Now moving on to the winners of the season, I'll start with Duncan himself. Duncan's still the same character he was last time around. The only difference is this time he got to make it to the end and win. Like, please. This is not a satisfying win by any means. I definitely prefer it over the other winner, just by comparison, but he didn't deserve this win. Sorry, not sorry. He spent the first chunk of the season butting up with Gwen, which really worked my nerves. Luckily, Gwen got her early boot. And then he moved into his dynamic with Lashana and Harold. And then he also had to balance the return of Courtney. Duncan is still clearly obsessed with Courtney, but Courtney was so focused on competing. In the last episode Courtney has, when she finally does make time for Duncan, Duncan gets fed up with her demands and votes her out. Duncan knew what he was signing up for with Courtney. I don't think he would have voted her out. I think they just needed to get rid of Courtney. And then even in the finale, they're back together cool. Like, okay. But Duncan being the one to get rid of Courtney was never going to be satisfying when they spent all that time building up Lindsay and Courtney. It should have been Lindsay's moment to take down Courtney. But whatever. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I don't care much about the Courtney and Duncan relationship. They both got other stuff going on. But I find Duncan uninteresting without Courtney. So I just don't care. I don't care about Duncan at all. That brings me to the other winner of the season, Beth. The worst winner in total drama history, hands down. And that's saying something, because we've had some bad winners. Would I still say Beth's the worst? You know, I can't say it for certain, but she's definitely in the conversation. Beth is the worst winner of the first 3 seasons. I can confidently say that. It should have been Lindsay here. Everybody knows it. Lindsay should have had Beth's spot. Beth had no business making it as far as she did in the first place. Where Lindsay got booted, that would have been a good spot for Beth. Like, okay, you made it farther than you needed to. Congratulations. But no, she just kept going and she won. Like, what? Beth? Nobody cares. She spent the whole season buddying up with Lindsay, but I found her taking every jab at Lindsay that she could take and constantly diminishing Lindsay. So, what a great friend Beth is. With friends like Beth, who needs enemies? So she's not a good friend or a good girlfriend. Because she spent most of the season talking about her guy back home that she knew for a day, her boyfriend, Brady, I don't know, irrelevant. She knew him for an entire day. So like, whatever. But she held it so highly, and then she went and kissed Harold? Really? Classless? Gross. Beth proved herself to be a hypocrite at every turn. It was entertaining seeing Beth and Courtney try to coexist at the end there. It would have been more interesting if it was Lindsay and Courtney. That's just what I think. The thing with Beth and Duncan, I just like, oh, this would be much better if it was Lindsay. Despite winning the season, Beth will always be viewed as the blander substitute for Lindsay. Congratulations, you win, and I can't take that away from you, but really? Beth probably would have been more fondly remembered if she didn't win, quite frankly. But that wraps up all my thoughts on Total Drama Action. A season with a middle stretch of episodes that I think are unmatched by the other seasons. But the season overall is shaky. I will definitely be back to discuss Total Drama World Tour, so stay tuned. Bye.